this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this report from Reason about how an internet mob ruined the life of a student, and it was started by this BLM activist who's, got a lot of attention after she accused this Karen, as she kept saying, of saying that she wanted somebody to mow down some kids, or said they would make good speed bumps, which I kind of heard that story back in 2020 and stuff, but it wasn't even true. And this poor girl went through the ringer, but she was a BLM activist and who accused her, and they even had to go on student trial basically against each other as the girl was trying to defend herself. But she was a perfect victim. Her dad was a cop, and people hated cops, and it was just like a hellstorm in 2020. Man, all that stuff was just such explosion of garbage. So we'll be talking about that story, as well as a little bit, I think I maybe mentioned a little bit yesterday, but Chelsea Clinton, the daughter of Bill Clinton, decided to defend some of these books being banned. I just wrote an article about that on blacktnews.com, so maybe you read it already, but the article that she shared talking about banned books has Genderqueer, which is a really gross book that's for I think ages starting at 15 or whatever, but there's books that are younger that are weird and gross that people are really flipping out, that parents want out of schools, and some other things as well. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Please check out different merchandise that we have at the store that does help to support the stores. Will support the website. So we got the "You Are Not That Special" mugs. We also got that in a t-shirt. We got the black tea mug. Since we're talking about BLM stuff, where's my "Be Better Not Better"? Well, here's a "I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For" shirt. A lot of people like that one. Also got the "Be Better Not Bitter." There we go. Also, I do write books myself, and of course my book, Of Course God Is Blatantly Against Abortion, is available on Kindle. It's available on Nook. It's available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon paperback and stuff, so you guys can get that. Make sure that you guys are getting it to get number 6 in my category. So thank you guys very much for picking it up. Hope you guys like it and are enjoying it. But go ahead and order yourself a copy today. God bless you. Very much appreciate it. Covers theology, of course, obviously covers theology, but also covers biology and philosophy. And a lot of people even people who don't agree with me on this particular issue with abortion, have noted that I'm pretty reasonable and logical. And some people have been like, wouldn't you do better if you just didn't mention the religious stuff? Which in my post, I really haven't. But there's a lot of Christians out there who are just kind of don't know, or they just kind of are ambivalent, and it seems to me, and I'll make a stronger case for this later, that a lot of people aren't actually pro-choice. They're just pro not be bothered. So don't think too much about it, and they don't have it in their mind that a lot of people are using abortion for reasons that aren't life and death, so much, and they're just just trust the woman, just cast off to the wind. And I'm like, but there's still someone being harmed. So we could maximize the most liberty. My position is we maximize the most liberty if both the mother and the child can live, and that's a scenario that we should fight for and push for. So so a lot of people who have particular mindsets of, oh, it's just okay. I deal with a lot of philosophy and rights and why we need objective morality, and also the societal harm of abortion as well. I do have an article about that on my website that I wrote more than a year ago now, I guess, but I do have a section in there about that, and also the different harm that's done by against women, because of abortion, but that's not even like the main reason why abortion is bad. I mean, it's bad because it is a human rights violation. So anyway, if you haven't picked it up, please pick it up. And I do have other books that I have available that you guys can get available. All my other books are just available on Amazon right now, but I think I will maybe release wide later. But most of my other books are just fiction. So I write about a wide range of things. So if you go to blacktnews.com and you check out the merchandise page, there's a banner that will take you to my book website, or you can just search Christina Elbar, Christina with a CH, on Amazon, and you'll find all my stuff. So go ahead and support and read. And I thank you for being interested, and I thank you for helping me to create and continue to build on the culture. We talked a lot about that yesterday. Also, if you like what I'm doing, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. If you're watching on Facebook, you can give with stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do super chats and stickers and stuff like that. But if you can, and if you would like to, you can go directly to the website, and there's a donate button across the stream, run my website, all that good stuff. So if you can't support, God bless you. It's very, very, very much appreciated and needed. So, have not because you ask not. So I'm asking. Okay, so let's jump into it. I have a meme today. I can be in some trouble. I don't know. I thought it was funny. I already shared it on Facebook. So if you follow me on Facebook, you know what's coming. So, you know how Netflix has been doing these documentaries about different people, and they're changing their ethnicity. We've had like there's a big controversy right now with the Netflix documentary on Cleopatra, right? And Jada Pinkett Smith is the one who is like producing it. And then you have films like or it was a TV show where they had Queen Anne Boleyn was cast as a black woman. So you'll see these jokes, and we've went through them before. Like, people have different memes of like Obama played by Ryan Gosling and other stuff like that. So I thought it was funny. If you don't think it's funny, I'm sorry, but we got Kyle Rittenhouse played by Michael B. Jordan. Sorry. So what is so funny about this to me is because so much about that story was just untrue of like the stuff circulating around in the media. So I think actually the biggest broadcast I've ever had streaming was during that time with Kyle Rittenhouse. I like walked through like what was all going on in Kenosha with the riots, what led Kyle Rittenhouse, to being there that day. So he was actually like defending a minority-owned business, but people have it in their minds that he shot and killed black people, and I'm like, nobody was black. So it just amazed me that so many people believe that, and even as like reporting from actual news organizations were reporting that black people were shot. And I don't have the screenshots and stuff pulled up, but I did at the time, and I major news outlets and stuff were reporting that. So I talked to my parents like about the case at the time, and my dad was in Mexico on a missionary trip, and that was after he was in the hospital for COVID for a while. Then he recovered, and he wanted to recover, so just to live anyway. But he went to Mexico. As soon as he was better, he went to Mexico, started doing mission work again. God bless his heart. But while he was, he was in Mexico. Was that then? Maybe it was a different time. I'm sorry. He went to Mexico, and then he went to some other places. So was that the same trip, or was that a different trip? I don't know. He was over there on a mission trip, but he went to another country somewhere down there. I don't think he was at Mexico at the time. I think he had moved on to a different country, but still somewhere southern than me. Than us right now. Where I am. I don't know where you are watching. So he had been unplugged. He's usually like watching, reading news from all over the world, watching Fox News if he's not watching like a Marvel movie or whatever. But as his last TV actually had like, I didn't even know TVs could do this. Like, it was burned like into the TV. So if you change the channel, the Fox News logo was still there. So we like pitched in and got like a new TV for him for Christmas. So the logo is gone. But anyway, he's very plugged into this stuff normally, but he didn't know that Kyle Rittenhouse didn't kill black people. And so he didn't know that until I had wrote an article about it, and I said everything wrong, like with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. And I sent it to him. We talked a little bit about it, and then I sent it to him, and then he called me back, and then he told me that he didn't know all those details that I had in my article. And he said it was really scary. And my dad doesn't scare easily. He's not a scary kind of guy. But he said it's very scary what the media will do and what they'll make you believe. And I was just floored that he didn't know. And I talked to my mom about it. I'm like, did your dad didn't know? And she's like, I didn't know till I heard y'all talking about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's probably still people to this day that believe that Kyle Rittenhouse, you know, there's all that narrative like he took the guns across state lines, and which where he lived was close. It was across state lines. He didn't transfer the guns over. Though some of the protesters there, like the one who survived, I believe he traveled a further distance than Kyle did that day to get there, and it was just a mess down there. And so Kyle and other people were like had their, you know, guns, but they were protecting a business. You can argue about whether or not he should have or shouldn't have been there or whatever. But he was there, and he had a medical kit for, you know, whatever reason. He was there earlier in the day cleaning up graffiti. Now he's after like he got off and stuff, you know, he did some interviews. I'm like, you know, I know you're kind of on a high, but calm down, kid. Like, there were some interviews I wasn't fond of, but I was relieved for him that he got off, because like if you watch the video footage, I'm like, this was clearly like self-defense. And even like one of the people on the bench was like, yeah, he didn't react until we reacted. And so anyway, there was all this false information, and people believed that he actually killed black people. So that's why this has me tickled, because there's so many points about everything that is wrong. And when I shared this, I had a caption. It was like, he just wanted to protect black owned businesses. So I thought it was a good meme. I decided to share. So anyway, moving on. I want to talk about this Chelsea Clinton story really quickly, because I'm going to read through this whole Reason article about the student's life who was messed up by this BLM activist. So really quickly, Chelsea Clinton, it was last Thursday actually, but it just got traction like earlier this week as far as what I noticed, and then I wrote an article about it, drew some attention, because I think it is worth drawing attention that there's so many of these politicians or their or activists and stuff who are fighting so hard to have these books that shouldn't be like accessible to kids or whatever, or at least that normal people think shouldn't be accessible to kids in their schools or library sections for kids, or shouldn't be marketed to kids. But people are like fighting like crazy to keep them, and they're like, oh, the Republicans, the GOP, they're the book banners. But it's very interesting. Abigail Shrier, who wrote Irreversible Damage about the social contagion of gender ideology, she noted that her book was like the #1 requested banned book in like Canada in the past like 15 years. But her book doesn't make banned book lists. That's very strange, is it not? It's not really strange. It's unfair, I guess, but it's not strange. And then there's I mentioned Ryan T. Anderson's book, When Harry Became Sally. That was something that Amazon like pulled off of their website because they thought it was like hateful or whatever. And Chad Felix Green spoke out against them getting rid of it, because Chad Felix Green, he's a gay man. He's living his life as a gay man, but he does have gender dysphoria. And that book really helped him through that. And so he found it to be a kind, compassionate book. By the way, Abigail Shrier's book, I haven't read When Harry Became Sally. You know, that's like on my list. But Irreversible Damage is not like it's really not a trans bashing book. I find it to be very compassionate and toward the people who are going through the dysphoria, the parents. You know, she doesn't talk harshly. She's concerned, sure, but she doesn't talk harshly about the subject at all. But she's so hated. The #1 question she said that she gets is how does it feel to be like the most hated person in America? And she did a wonderful, wonderful speech of answering that question at a college. Actually read the entire thing for an episode of broadcast because it was so good. I would love to interview her. I'm going to put that out one day to her on a social media, see if she'll come on. But I admire her courage, you know, what she did. But people aren't concerned about people coming against her book or the book When Harry Met Sally. Aren't these not, don't they qualify as LGBTQ plus issues? They do, but they only appreciate and protect things that are going to encourage affirmation, that are going to encourage sexual perversion for whatever reason. And the reasons can't be good. No, I don't know if Chelsea Clinton, I'm sorry, is aware of the fact that this book here, Genderqueer, is so gross, but I don't know how you can't be like, they've got to have publicists or whatever that know a little bit about this stuff. And if you don't know a little bit about this stuff, why the heck are you talking about it? Why are you talking about it? So people are trashing her. Well, let me read some of the comments, like from Chad Felix Green. Told her the photo in the article you're quoting features a book with explicit illustrations of sex acts, a book about incest, one a sex story about two 10-year-old boys, one about a man sexually assaulting, he used the R word, but and isolating a 12-year-old girl, one about a teen girl who seduces a man and kidnaps her. So I could show you pictures of it, and I didn't have that time to blur out all that stuff. So if you're brave enough, you can, I'm sure, find images on the internet, especially on Twitter, or find angry school parents reading these at meetings, and then people saying you can't read that, you can't say that, and they're like, what do you mean we can't say that when you have this at like the school library or something, or it's in sections for kids of like, you know, of for teens, but I can't say it to you, but this is what you want them to see or read or you have available. So I've talked about, especially on the campaign trail during 2022, that there's a book, This Book is Gay. That book had some, now I don't have those still pulled up, but I did show stuff, but I blurred it out. I have a video on blacktnews.com and on my YouTube channel about Gretchen Whitmer and how she defended those books and stuff. There was, you might have heard about parents in Dearborn and stuff, Muslim parents coming together with like evangelicals to denounce these books that are in schools, and then the LGBT community is pushing back like, oh, this is hateful, like why can't we, you know, just be or whatever. It's like, you can be and just be, but why the sexually explicit stuff? It's weird. Why can't you just be you but not have this stuff geared toward kids? It's why, like, and it, for people who just want to live their lives and love whoever they want to love and stuff, it just, or be trans and not be bothered with all the stuff. It makes life very hard for everyone else. If you have to, in order to protect the community, that you have to protect perversion. If the two have to go together, people are going to start raising their eyebrows. Do you have to protect them both, or can you just denounce like bad sexually explicit graphic stuff? It shouldn't be that hard. So Chelsea has put herself into some hot water a bit. Well, not hot water, I guess. She doesn't care, but people have just been like, oh, like father, like daughter, noting that her dad is really creepy. Bill Clinton, the former president of the United States, for those who do not know, because you might, I don't know, be young or from another country. But he's got a long history of being a creep. There's, well, in 1998, he had to settle a sexual harassment suit with Paula Jones. He was accused by Juanita Broderick of, you know, sexual assault, penetration. I just don't want to say the word and get like dinged. And also there was all these like all this talk while he was president about inappropriate stuff going on with interns. And, you know, I think it's funny, side note, how people will say, we just want to teach honest history, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, people who want to teach honest history and are trying to defend honest history don't even believe in an honest present, right? They don't even believe in an honest present. But let's talk about honest history, whatever. I'm sure, have you guys ever heard the vast right-wing conspiracy theory? Have you heard of that before? I remember when Hillary Clinton was on the campaign trail, and she was at a debate, and Anderson Cooper of CNN asked the question, do you still believe there's a vast right-wing conspiracy theory? And she's like, don't you? And then she just started laughing. She's like, it's just better funded now. Do you know where that phrase originated from? It originated from when Bill Clinton was in the White House, and the vast right-wing conspiracy theory was the sexual escapades of his, you know, being in the White House. So may I ask you, was that a vast right-wing conspiracy theory? Or was that just the truth that they wanted to cover up? And then they still have the nerve to call it a vast right-wing conspiracy theory. But anyway, it all really came to head because of Monica Lewinsky. And Monica Lewinsky did some acts with the president, former president, and her friend gave her some good advice, some really good advice, after some of the president's fluids got on her dress. She told her to keep that dress, don't wash it, and she didn't. So there was evidence. So if you ever hear about Bill Clinton and a blue dress, and Monica Lewinsky and a blue dress, that is what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about. So, yeah. So people are now like trashing her, saying like father, like daughter. And, cause she's like supporting some creepy stuff. So I'd if I were her, I'd back down. Also, another thing I mentioned in the article is that, he is associated with like Jeffrey Epstein and stuff, and which Epstein is a American super rich predator, and he died in prison, and before the depth of his network and his clients and stuff was really released, but he did have association with Bill Clinton, and he actually even like some of Epstein's like alleged sex slaves were like photographed with Bill Clinton, but they still let him speak at the DNC like immediately right after that. But he had this creepy portrait of Bill Clinton at his place. So I found out some things about it today. There's all these conspiracies like about it. Now, I never thought that Bill here like posed for anything like that. So that's the portrait. I never assumed that he had like posed for it or anything like that. But apparently the artist isn't even American, and a lot of the stuff that she knew about like American politics was just like from like The Daily Show and stuff like that. So she did a portrait of Bill Clinton, and also another one of like George Bush, where he's like in the Oval Office like playing with some toys like he's a dim-witted child or something. So this was sold at a just like art display or whatever thing, and she didn't even know that Epstein bought it. So if anyone thought that like someone went to the island and Bill posted a dress for Epstein and had someone paint it, like that I never assumed anything like that. In case anyone did assume anything like that, you know, that's not what happened. But yeah, what a heck of a thing to want. Epstein was a disgusting guy and had a lot of weird stuff. So that's the story. Anyway, the blue dress. That's actually not what the dress, at least, I don't know, maybe I just saw a picture of the dress hanging up as evidence, but I don't think it looks like that quite. But yeah, anyway, that's the story. And Chelsea's a bit weird. So anyway, let's move on. I'm going to go through this story, and it's a kind of a long article, but I want to read through it cuz 2020 was such a horrible time with so many like implications and not implications, but repercussions is a word I'd rather use, that people aren't even like aware of just how much we've just totally like demolished our morals in our society, and how much what has changed and rippled because of this madness. But this is a really unfortunate story about a young girl who her life was just kind of ruined by this BLM activist who lied about something that she said, alleging that protesters would make good speed bumps. And I kind of heard that, or whatever, the allegation. I guess I didn't look too much into it or think too much about it or whatever, but it wasn't true. It wasn't true. So, really good reporting from Reason. But I want to go ahead and go through it because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned, like about the internet mob. Because the internet mob that will go after people and just try to destroy people, about really not buying into outrage, but trying to seek out the truth. And I some people don't care about the truth. And this story strikes me that the people who went after her didn't really care about the truth. And a lot of people don't. They want things that feel true. Like the Jussie Smollett case. So many, the hate crime, or the Bubba, the race car driver. Those were things that felt true to them because that's how they've warped the world. So when they hear something that validates how they view America or view the world around them, that's just so heightened with racism or whatever, they're like, I absolutely believe that. And they're just so gullible. And I guess both sides can really engage in that, but we have to take a step back and just question things more. Like I've been, like duped by a thing or two in my day, but I don't think anything like that. But, and there have been times I would step back and apologize, or been like, oh gosh, I shared something I shouldn't have shared or whatever. But the aggression that people had with this mob, with this girl, and again, she did not do the thing that they said that they did. So I think it's an important story worth talking about for sure. Okay. Zoom in. Okay. How an ill-informed internet mob ruined a UVA student's life. Morgan Bettinger was accused on social media of telling protesters they would make good speed bumps. It was more than a year before investigations cleared her name. The story went something like this. A white woman pulled up to a black Woman Matter protest in Charlottesville and told attendees they would make good bleeping speed bumps. When protesters confronted her, the driver cried and called the police. If you were a student at the University of Virginia during the summer of 2020, as I was, you almost certainly heard this tale. It was repeated hundreds of times over group chats and Instagram posts and viral tweets. The rumors were given a sheen of legitimacy by local news reporting and were acknowledged by the university administration. The allegations first attracted attention after Zaya Bryant, a 19-year-old UVA student and social justice activist, made them on Twitter during a demonstration. Her account would be retweeted more than 1,000 times. The woman in this truck approached protesters in hashtag Charlottesville and told us that we would make good speed bumps, Bryant wrote. She then called the police and started crying, saying we were attacking her. Just hindsight is like, because they tell her side of the story too. So I'm like, ah. Bryant also posted a series of videos, not of alleged speed bump comment itself, but of its aftermath. In the videos, an SUV reverses down the street while Bryant and several other protesters follow. It's a Karen, Bryant taunts. Charlottesville Beyond Policing, the group that organized the protest, gave more details in a Medium post shortly afterward. The woman drove around the public works truck blocking the street that demonstrators were convened on, and felt compelled to say, not just once but twice, that protesters would make good speed bumps, the post reported. The second time she repeated it loudly to a black protester and added, good bleeping speed bumps. So these really made up stuff. Soon after Bryant's tweets, the allegation was picked up by local journalists. While the group gathered on East High Street, a white woman drove around the public works truck blocking the road and twice told the protesters they would make good speed bumps. Seaville Weekly reported the threat is especially chilling and violent given that Heather Hare was murdered by a driver just a few blocks from where the protest took place. Heather Hare was 32-year-old woman who was killed during the 2017 Unite the Right rally when a white supremacist deliberately drove his car into a throng of protesters. Videos captured by protest attendees show that a small crowd, including Bryant, soon gathered to confront the woman, who had since retreated to her car and appeared to call the police. Bleep you, I almost died in a bleeping car accident. Bleeping cry, bleep. One protester shouts in footage of the incident. No one captured the woman's words on camera. Red flag. However, WVA can confirm that she refused to leave the scene, even though protesters were asking her to, and at no point were protesters blocking her car. The student-run website WVA reported and added that she refused to leave until Charlottesville police officers arrived at the scene in an unmarked minivan. So if she did something wrong, like, why would she not leave until the police arrived? Anyway, Bryant sent her first battery of tweets within minutes of the incident, and outrage comments quickly began to flowing in. She called the police to do what? Report herself for making a threat? UVA Professor Jaleel Schmidt replied, if you know this Karen, please take her keys. If she feels the overwhelming need to run people over, she shouldn't be driving, a local journalist, Molly Conger, tweeted. Almost immediately, a search was launched to identify the young woman at the protest. It didn't take long. Her license plate appeared prominently in Bryant's videos. By the next morning, she had been identified as Morgan Bettinger, a rising senior at UVA. Good morning, everyone. But a Marley high grad UVA student and daughter of a cop, Morgan Elise Bettinger, who threatened protesters in Charlottesville last night by saying from her blue Subaru that we'd make good speed bumps, wrote one anonymous Twitter user who may have been the first to identify Bettinger as a woman in the car. The post contained a screenshot of Bettinger's Facebook profile, which had Blue Lives Matter profile frame, and eventually gained over 750 retweets. So this person was just a freaking enemy to them because Blue Lives Matter. Once Bettinger's identity was established, UVA students seemed particularly inflamed. The alleged perpetrator was one of their own. One student tweeted that Bettinger was a bleeping Nazi. Another wrote, all I know is that I'm not comfortable being classmates with someone who promotes domestic terrorism. Student Council President Ellen Yates declared on Twitter, absolutely disgusting. She knew the history and she knew what she was doing. A person who makes this kind of threat should not be a student at UVA. There can be no community of trust with people like her in it. Caroline Lane, was a junior in the university at the time. Suddenly everyone knew about it. She says, I had some friends who were back home who were messaging me about it because they knew I was in town. It was everywhere. The next day, Bryant began a campaign to send mass complaints to school administrators demanding Bettinger's expulsion. Email these UVA deans now to demand that Morgan face consequences for her actions and that UVA stop graduating racist, she tweeted. Bryant herself filed a complaint with the University Judiciary Committee, a student-run disciplinary system, alleging that Bettinger had threatened students' health and safety. The university eventually issued a statement which said it strongly condemns any threat directed at other members of our community. We are aware of the allegations on social media about a student's conduct with respect to a protest in the city and are actively investigating the matter. Rather than quell the growing outrage, that response seemed to inflame it. Okay, but what actual consequences, wrote one student, because we know how much y'all love to coddle little white girls. Nothing more to investigate, just act, added another. In the year that followed, Bettinger was the subject of multiple investigations. One of them from the UJC would find her guilty of threatening the health or safety of students. As punishment, she would be expelled in abeyance, meaning that she was allowed to continue her schooling, but that a second violation of the same standard of conduct would likely result in actual expulsion. She also faced a litany of other sanctions. While Bettinger eventually graduated from the university, she did so with permanent mark on her record and a destroyed reputation. But despite two separate investigations, there's no evidence beyond Bryant's allegations that Bettinger said protesters would make good bleeping speed bumps or that she threatened the protesters at all. Bettinger denied she made the threat. A student-run investigation agreed that Bettinger's not Bryant's version of what transpired. A separate investigation by the school's civil rights office concluded that none of Bryant's allegations had sufficient evidence to support them. Bryant's almost damning claim that Bettinger had told protesters they would make good bleeping speed bumps had no corroborating witnesses, even though it allegedly occurred in front of a crowd of more than 30 people. Reason reviewed additional documents previously not made public, all of which back up the findings of the investigation. But none of this would come out until nearly a year later, in June 2021, with the results of the investigation kept largely under wraps. The only story that most UVA students heard, the one repeated over group chats, Twitter threads, and Zoom meetings with almost manic fever, was Bryant's. So this is awful. This story is a story of a rumor mill that rushed to collective judgment, a pervasive climate of anger and outrage, a weak campus administration, and a unique higher ed justice system that faltered just when it was most needed. It's a story of a woman who was informally ostracized and formally sanctioned for a story that seemingly everyone on campus had heard and believed, but which was never proven. So, the mob mentality, the internet mob mentality is awful. They try to get her kicked out of school on something that's a lie. So before you jump on, just like, throwing someone overboard, especially with no evidence other than someone's word. Like there's a video, but there's no video of what she said. And these journalists who are reporting on it with no evidence other than the word of an activist. But she was a victim. They didn't like her. Dad's a cop, Blue Lives Matter, white girl. You heard them say like, oh, y'all like to protect white girls. So it was just a perfect storm for them. She fit the profile of someone they wanted to hate. It felt real to them. It felt true enough. So it was enough for them. It's a Karen. The story of Bettinger tells what happened that day is markedly different from the story that dominated the narrative on campus. According to Bettinger, on the evening of June 17th, 2020, she was driving home from work on East High Street near downtown Charlottesville when she saw a dump truck blocking the road ahead. Bettinger says the truck didn't appear to be completely blocking the intersection on East High and 4th Street, so she kept driving. By the time she realized the road actually was completely blocked, Bettinger says she had no room to turn around. Confused, she parked her car and went out to see what was going on. As Bettinger got out of her car, she claims that the driver of the dump truck initiated a conversation with her. I had no interest in walking over to him to speak to him, she says, but out of being polite, when he spoke to me, I answered. According to Bettinger, the pair had a brief casual conversation, a claim the driver later supported in a statement to Charlottesville police. At some point during this conversation, Bettinger says she told the driver something like, "It's a good thing that you are here because otherwise these people would have been speed bumps." While she says she doesn't remember her exact words, she maintains that her comment was intended to thank the driver for protecting the protesters, many of whom were sitting in the middle of the often busy East High Street. Not once did anything from the past or even the rally, Unite the Right rally, cross my mind, Bettinger says. It was simply a comment made to a dump truck driver who was sitting and blocking the road and just saying, like, it's a good that you're here. While the truck driver told police he had initiated a brief conversation with Bettinger, he said at this moment he was unable to hear her precise words over the sound of his engine. After finishing her conversation with the truck driver, Bettinger says that she walked around the front of the truck toward the back of the crowd to get a better look at the protest. She took a photo and then began walking back to her car. At that point, Bettinger says that a few of the crowd had begun to take an interest in her. Someone seemed to be recording her, and others were following her. Unnerved, Bettinger immediately called her mother and got in her car. The crowd grew increasingly aggressive, and many began shouting at her. According to Bettinger, one protester started pounding on the car's windows, with the one woman hitting on my car and other people shouting and starting to threaten me. I didn't know what was going to happen. Bettinger says, frightened, she called 911. Eventually, Bettinger says that the protesters gave her enough space to back up one block, pulling her car into 3rd Street. Videos taken by the protest attendees show that a small group of protesters followed Bettinger. One of the protesters was Bryant. It's a Karen, Bryant shouted as she filmed Bettinger. Faintly, one voice can be heard asking, "What did she say?" Another person replied, "She said, we'll make good speed bumps." "Oh, we'll make good speed bumps," Bryant exclaimed in the video. "We'll make good speed bumps?" When police arrived a few minutes later, Bettinger says they waved her back onto East High Street, and she eventually drove home after speaking to the police. "We had gone down a couple of blocks, and they wanted to see how I was doing because I was quite shaken up," Bettinger says. "I was physically shaking, and I am very taken aback by the whole experience." Bettinger was unaware of the social media fever that was building until hours later. "I was laying in bed and one of my friends from high school reached out and said, 'Are you okay?' And I didn't know what that meant," Bettinger says. Then he sent her a link to Bryant's Twitter thread. You just imagine minding your own business and all of a sudden, like, these group of people, angry, you're a white girl, and all these angry black people come. Accusing you, calling you a Karen, and accusing you of doing something you didn't do, and everyone's just angry and like attacking you. Pretty crazy. Bryant organized her first social justice demonstration at the age of 12. She gained national recognition after she wrote a 2016 petition demanding that Charlottesville take down its statue of Robert E. Lee. By summer 2020, she had been named Teen Vogue's 21 and under 21 list and had spoken alongside Bernie Sanders and had been profiled in such outlets as the New Yorker and the New York Times. She was easily one of the most visible students at UVA, in part because her face was pictured on the side of a university bus. Social justice protests swept the nation during summer 2020. Americans were outraged by seemingly countless unjustified police killings and protests over the death of George Floyd dominated major cities, with COVID-19 sweeping the nation. Americans were cooped up, glued to the screens, and furious. I was a junior at UVA at the time. Though I didn't know Bryant or Bettinger personally, quarantine at home students took to calling each other out on social media and circulating increasing numbers and demanded letters and statements. Students were mad that summer about policing, about racism, about COVID, and inequality. At times, it felt that everyone was just angry and looking for anyone to blame. Morgan Bettinger was the perfect villain. She was a white girl from Charlottesville, the daughter of a cop, and by her own account, pro-police. The summer had already been dominated by viral videos of white women behaving badly, with Amy Cooper, the so-called Central Park Karen, chief among them. It wasn't hard to believe that Charlottesville could have a Karen of its own. As the story spread online, comments kept rolling in, mostly on Twitter. "Absolutely insane. We need to see action from UVA against hate speech," wrote one student. "UVA needs to expel Morgan Bettinger immediately. You all want an open racist attending your school," one anonymous account tweeted. Making matters worse, few people seem to have even watched Bryant's video. Comment after comment insisted that there was a video proof that Bettinger had made these threats. People do that all the time. They think there's evidence and there's not. What allegation? There is no clear video footage of this girl. Racist, borderline violent behavior, wrote one student. A few comments seemed like veiled threats. One anonymous person tweeted a photo of a canister of foam sealant with the caption, "Apply liberally to tailpipe." Jeez. "I was completely consumed. My phone did not stop blowing up," Bettinger recalls. "I didn't sleep for nights." Bettinger felt the ramifications offline too. "Somebody had identified me after this and started following me in a grocery store." So I had to leave, Bettinger told me. I was trying to get another car at that point because people were looking for my license plates and my bumper sticker. So I had to, a wonderful family friend let me use their car for a week. Bettinger was majoring in the university's political philosophy, policy, and law program. The director eventually sent a series of mass emails to her cohort, writing that regardless of whether your classmate made the remark and whether one's views on legal limits of free speech, its substance and importance must be unconditionally condemned. No academic institution or program dedicated to free and open reflection on our deepest public disagreements can condone such an attitude. In a litany of Zoom meetings and phone calls that followed, it became increasingly clear that Bettinger's cohort would refuse to be in the same virtual classroom as her. The class was officially changed. Oh my gosh. They tried to kick me out of my own major, Bettinger told me. One individual of my cohort even compared me to a, to an R word. Sexual assault to you guys. I don't want to get flagged in. Not flagged that they would take it down, but flagged like monetization and whatever. They might demonetize this anyway, but confirming Bettinger's fears, the dean of students, Alan Groves, referred charges to the UJC for threatening the protesters, and Bryant also filed a complaint with the UJC. Bettinger would face disciplinary charges alleging that she had threatened students' health or safety. The UJC is a student-run organization that functions as a school's disciplinary system, handling most of all cases students' misconduct for not falling under the honor code, allegations of sexual assault. The committee, which functions like a college-based civil court, is one of the UVA's most elite clubs, in contrast to many other students' justice systems, which can be loose and often shoddy. The UJC is a well-oiled machine. The organization has a bureaucracy that handles the investigation, defense, judgment, and punishment of accused students. For trials, a 5-member jury. The UJC bylaws call it a trial panel made up of individual judges, is selected from a pool around 30 elected representatives. Judging from my interviews with former UJC representatives, these juries are keenly aware they act on behalf of a public university, and their actions are therefore constrained by federal law. If they violate your constitutional rights, the entire university, and by extension, the entire state, has, one former representative says, so the appeal for that would go directly to federal court. To permit such an outcome, the UJC employs a staggering number of practices specifically enacted to protect accused students' legal rights before they even hear a case. One former representative told me that the new jury members are given a training on their constitutional responsibilities, which contains not just an overview of the First Amendment, but also relevant for Bettinger's case, the legal definition of a true threat. According to this former representative, the university administration frequently reviews the jury's findings before they are formally announced. While they cannot unilaterally reverse a decision, administrators can send a case back to either the entire retrial or with specific notes about a paragraph or sentence or decision that is likely to cause issues, he told me. The juries are sometimes provided with panel instructions, a document reviewing the relevant laws. These instructions are written in a consultation with university counsel, and they are drafted with the explicit intent that they guide the jury deliberations. While panel instructions are given to every case, they were given to Bettinger's, suggesting that UJC and the administration believed her case raised legal issues. Ideally, the panel instructions in Bettinger's case should have concluded basically an explanation of what the First Amendment requires of a university, says Sabrina Kanza, a program officer at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, a First Amendment nonprofit which was briefly involved in Bettinger's case. So an explanation that the university cannot punish speech that is protected, and then an explanation of specific kinds of speech that maybe they're investigating. Further, because Bettinger was on trial for threatening UVA students, the panel instructions should have included the legal definition of a true threat, the very high bar Bettinger's speech would have to cross for the university to legally punish her. The true threat is a statement in which the speaker means to convey a serious intent to engage in violence against another person, says Adam Steinball, an attorney at FIRE. According to Steinball, Bettinger's account of her comment that she had said something like, it's a good thing that you are here because otherwise these people would have been speed bumps, falls short of a true threat. No dip, Sherlock. for two reasons. One, it's not seriously conveying an intent to do something in the future. And second, it would fall short of a true threat because it's rhetorical hyperbole, meaning that it's an exaggerated, not sincere statement. If the UJC jury believed Bettinger, this means they wouldn't, or at least shouldn't, be able to punish her, as her comment was simply not a true threat. It wasn't an expression of an intent to commit future violence, and it was clearly rhetorical hyperbole. And UJC then seemed well equipped to adjudicate the complaints against Bettinger and to understand the First Amendment issues at play when possibly punishing a student for her speech. As Bettinger's trial began September 25th, 2020, she was nervous. I knew I had a solid case. She says, I had prepared everything I possibly could to be as transparent as possible, to show all the facts, but at the same time, I knew I was facing UVA students that I did not have much hope in them being neutral. Adding an extra twist to the proceedings, UJC trials function like civil court, meaning that Bryant acted as a plaintiff, constructing the case against Bettinger. Quite literally, Bettinger's UJC trial was her versus Bryant. The two would be in the same place for the first time since the day of the incident. According to Bettinger, her trial was set to begin at 5 p.m. that day, but there were quickly signs of trouble. Bettinger says that before the trial even started, her outside lawyer, Charles Weber, her UJC assigned counselor, her student defender, were pulled into a private meeting to discuss the panel instructions before the case, along with Bryant's lawyer and counselor. Ahead of the trial, Weber says he had made an informal agreement with the university council on the content of the panel instructions, but the instructions presented at the trial were completely different than what he expected. I worked with the university council prior to the trial to get a good panel instruction, he says, and I thought we had an agreement. And when we came to the trial, the panel instruction looked nothing at all like what I thought the agreement was. Weber told me that the panel instructions were highly confusing. It was convoluted. If you gave it to a jury out here, they pull their hair out trying to figure out what the heck it means. He says, we lodged our objections to it when it was done. We were not given any opportunity to actually state our objections on the record. The Office of University Counsel did not respond to repeated requests for additional comment. According to Bettinger, this discussion lasted around 20 minutes. The confusing instructions stood. Bettinger and Weber told me that the trial itself lasted for hours, starting with Bryant's side of the case and ending with Bettinger's around 12 a.m. Bettinger and Weber both claimed that during the trial, several of Bryant's own witnesses offered testimony inconsistent with the claims Bryant originally made in her complaint to UJC. They claimed two of Bryant's witnesses said Bettinger spoke only to the truck driver, statements that match witnesses' reports from the school's civil rights investigation later. In Bryant's original complaint, though, she never mentioned Bettinger speaking to a truck driver, only directly to protesters. Around 3 to 4 a.m., Weber says the jury, which the UJC bylaws call a trial panel made up of individual judges, came back with their verdict. They had found Bettinger guilty. Trash, man, trash. I think I was numb. That's probably the best way I could describe it, Bettinger says. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of making a face, making a sound, crying. I wasn't going to have any emotion. This is trash, bro. Bettinger would have to wait nearly 3 days to learn her punishment. It was agonizing. I was so physically sick over just the stress of it all, she recalls. I was in the bathroom throwing up. On September 28, Bettinger was sentenced 50 hours of community service with a social justice organization. 3 meetings with an assigned professor to teach her about police community relations. An apology letter to Bryant. Oh my gosh. I didn't get to this part when I was reading it before. And the expulsion. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm looking at your comments really quick. Oh my gosh. It's difficult to know for sure why the jury decided to find Bettinger guilty, as they left little trace of their rationale. But a short paragraph read to Bettinger at her trial, which was obtained by Reason, does contain a clue. We, the judges of this trial panel, find that your actions on July 17th were shameful and put members of the community at risk, the jury began. You yourself acknowledged, saying it's a good thing you are here because otherwise these people would have been speed bumps. Given the tragic events of August 12 and the context in which you uttered these words, you disregarded Charlottesville's violent history, a history you should have been cognizant of a UVA student and resident of Charlottesville. During these proceedings, you have shown no understanding of the risk of the student posed. Oh boy, I don't know if I could have wrote that letter. It would have been a nice letter. It would not have been a nice apology letter. It was a strange statement. The jury didn't dispute Bettinger's version of what she said, yet they still punished her harshly because of the cultural, political, and geographical context of her speech. In essence, the UJC jury found that even if Bettinger was telling the truth about what she said that day, merely uttering the words speed bumps sufficiently near the location of Heather Hare's death was enough to transform the statement into a true threat. It's impossible to know why the student jury punished Bettinger without full access to the panel instructions, but what's unmistakable is the decision's distinctly partisan tone. In effect, the UJC sentenced her to ideological retraining. It's not hard to imagine the effort that mass student outrage may have had on the verdict. Like, absolutely. There was one glimmer of hope for Bettinger, one that she clung to as she wrapped her mind around what was happening. Despite the verdict, the UJC jury seemed to agree that she was telling the truth. Bettinger spent the next a few months in a flurry appealing her UJC verdict and attempting to finish her senior year. Meanwhile, another investigation was underway, and inquiry by professional investigators at the university's Office for Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights. This was a response to a different complaint Bryant filed, alleging Bettinger had harassed her on the basis of her race. Man, this girl. Social justice warrior. When the investigation was completed on June 2021, it arrived at a rather different conclusion than the UJC's. Not only did it find that Bettinger didn't legally harass Bryant, but it painted a picture of just how shaky Bryant's allegations were. According to a copy of the EOCR report obtained by Reason, individuals interviewed by the EORCs alleged that Bettinger made 5 separate statements with the term speed bumps. The only one found to have sufficient evidence supporting it, the claim that Bettinger said something with speed bumps in it while talking to the truck driver, was the one that Bettinger herself never denied. It also was the one allegation made not by Bryant, but solely by other witnesses interviewed by the EOCR. 3 of Bryant's 4 allegations were not corroborated by other witnesses, even though they allegedly occurred in front of a large crowd. 2 separate times, according to the report, Bryant made an allegation, then later claimed she heard something else, or even that she wasn't sure she heard something at all. The 4th allegation, that Bettinger shouted that protesters would make good speed bumps over the top of their car, did not have one other witness backing it up, but other report noted that the witness contradicted both themselves and Bryant during their interviews. Meanwhile, Bryant later changed her mind on this claim, telling investigators that she actually wasn't sure she heard Bettinger say this at all. Most damningly, the EOCR report found that it was more likely than not that Bryant learned that Bettinger had made speed bump remark not firsthand, but during a moment Bryant herself had captured on video, a moment where she appeared to overhear a third-party discussion of Bettinger's alleged statements. Based on Bryant's immediate and surprised tone following the second third party's reply, EOCRs find that more likely than not that it was at that moment Bryant first learned that Bettinger made a statement about protesters making speed bumps. The report wrote, reach for comment. Bryant declined to answer questions on the record. Man. After the EOCR released its report, Bettinger was relieved but frustrated. Yes, I was vindicated, she told me, but just because they found the correct answer in some sense didn't get rid of everything I had just gone through. Viewing the EOCR investigation as an exoneration, Weber sent the letter to the UVA president, Jim Ryan, asking for his intervention in overturning Bettinger's UJC sanction. At first, Ryan ignored the request. Not surprised. But then Fire got involved in the case, sending another letter to Ryan alleging the school had violated Bettinger's First Amendment rights. After receiving Fire's letter, Ryan responded by denying both Weber and Fire's legal appeals, writing to Fire, as president, it would be inappropriate for me to intervene in a case that has been properly adjudicated. When reached for comment, a university spokesperson declined for comment further and directed reason to Ryan's letter to fire. Bryant has thrived since the incident. She received a glowing Washington Post profile in 2021, and last year she was named to Ebony's Power 100 list and was featured in a Juneteenth themed post on Instagram's official page. I kind of want to throw something. Meanwhile, Bettinger lives in a state of limbo. She had been a first-generation college student. Her father, a police officer, died of cancer 6 years before the incident. With such a severe mark on her disciplinary record, law school feels permanently out of reach. She still lives and works in the Charlottesville area. She won't say where, out of fear of being stalked at her new job. Though the allegation against Bettinger was always flimsy, the damage it did to her reputation has not been reversed. It didn't matter. There was never any evidence that she had threatened protesters at times. It didn't even seem to matter that she was a person at all, a young woman who deserved the benefit of the doubt. This whole situation has had a huge impact on my life, Bettinger says. The university has never had to answer for what their actions have done. So, yeah, that's the story. And, that's messed up. That's something that, you know, I was gonna say I want to see a Netflix documentary about, but you might change all the races. I like to see some vindication here for Bettinger more. And I like more people to know what happened, that this girl lied. And, you know, it's funny that these magazines, like I remember when Larry Elder was running for governor in the recall, he was talking about how, I think he was asked like something like, why don't more like black people whoever supports you? And he was talking about how you have the black media who doesn't like people like him and doesn't feature prominent black people like Clarence Thomas. And so if they, not in a positive light at all. Like I talked yesterday about, I did a video when I was live the other day talking about Clarence Thomas. I mentioned that there was an SNL skit, and I don't remember if I said where there's a magazine or something that showed something. I don't remember if I said it was Time or something, but it was a Merge magazine, and it was Living Color. So those are black focused things that portrayed, you know, Clarence Thomas as a fool, you know, that was just subservient to all of his colleagues, because if you operate in a way where you don't have permission from how the group think that says that you're allowed to think, then they will undermine you. And that's, you know, you'll see that all the time. You watch like MSNBC or something, they'll talk about these black Republicans and they're traitors and they're sellouts, or they're just, you know, frankly dumb. And then all the people are using them as their kind of their narrative. But Clarence Thomas is a, you know, very brilliant man. He's written a lot of opinions and stuff himself. And he's, they just hate his guts. They really hate his guts. But Larry Elder just mentioned they don't have prominent people. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Ebony, if I'm not mistaken, did like, maybe it might have been 2016. But there was a year they featured like all these black people running for office. And what do you think, like, if you could guess, what's the mistake that you think they made? Or it wasn't a mistake. What's the thing that they did at first where they featured black people and running for office, and what do you think is the thing that they left out or didn't do, or the people they ignored? They only showed the Democrats. They didn't show the Republicans who were black and running for office, and didn't feature them because that's not their people. You know, when they treat, you know, black people who think differently so terribly, it makes me just believe or think that they don't actually care about black people. They just care about ideology. And you get, you know, pushed out if you don't conform, and if you don't say the lines you're supposed to say or live the way that they say that you're supposed to live, etc. But anyway, Ebony featuring this girl, this massive liar, as some kind of warrior for goodness and standing up to the Karen, who thought it was a good thing that these people weren't run down, you know, was just saying basically a nice thing, and all these people came and attacked her and tried to ruin her life. And people just need to know about the truth, that this is a another hoax. And people are laughing at Jussie Smollett and he's a meme and people mocked Bubba. But man, ESPN still like did a video like covering him or something as if that wasn't an utter total embarrassment. They're like, oh, all these people stood with me. I'd be so embarrassed ever mentioning that. There's a lot of things that just did not pan out. But as I said, it felt true enough to them. They went along with it. Even that panel who punished her, put it on her permanent record. They knew the truth. They didn't dispute it. But even still, they wanted a reason to convict her. And that's just really, really bonkers, really crazy. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And I was going to say I want to get off, but I don't know, that seems a little too dark. It's just, I want things to change. I want things to change. 2020 and the results of it and the hate that was just exploding everywhere and how the media just kept pumping it up. And there was a purpose for pumping up such hatred. And especially during the election time, because they had to take the sins of the world, the racist sins of the world, and just Donald Trump was like the messianic figure of racism, and they needed to sacrifice him so we could cleanse America's sins and get Joe Biden in office, who's a racist old man himself. So our world is dumb sometimes. What else can I say? Anyway, thank you guys for listening to that. Like I said, I think it was an important story. Just for someone to hear a story and truth be told and truth be said, man, I hope some more people pick it up and talk about this. But thank you for watching. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Please check out my book, and not just check it out, but go buy it. What I'm talking about, it's forever. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion, available on Kindle and Amazon and Nook and Barnes and Noble, so you guys can go get that online. So my baby sister is the one who did this art. She did such a beautiful job. I just kind of swallowed like some air or something, and so my voice is like kind of tingling. Please go to the website and look at different merch that we have as well on the website. Like I mentioned Joe Biden. The Denounce White Supremacy Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racism on the back of the shirt. I got them in short sleeve and long sleeve. Long sleeve is pretty comfortable, so go check it out. And again, I will show you guys that I'm not the victim you're looking for, so you guys can get that. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs to stream, costs to run my website, all that good stuff. So if you can support in that way, God bless you. I very, very, very much appreciate it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.